Welcome back to another episode in our Unreal Engine series on how to make an FPS. In this episode, it's going to be a very much requested one. A lot of you guys have had issues with this, and that's kind of just because I didn't finish everything, but there's a multi-step process to everything, of course, and it's ADS, aim down sights. And of course, it's very unstable. It looks really bad right now. I mean, not really bad, but let's be real. Well, first of all, it's a big glitch. We're going to address that, but this is unstable. This is not what you would want in a stable aim down sights thing. Animations and idle animations, everything are cool, but as we look around, we can't get a solid aim. And as I go left and right and forward and backward, I get this jitter. If I jump, all of it. It's just not at all smooth. And then on top of that, there's another bug, and most of you have also noticed this. If I let go, pay attention, it's going to go back and then snap to another location. Goes back and then snaps. And then snaps, right? So it's bad. And that's not at all what you would want in any final product. So how do we fix that? Well, first of all is actually dumbing down our animation. As we can see, he just kind of idles and moves around, which is good and fine, and idle animations are something that really give flavor and life to your game. It makes it feel real and alive. But of course, this is not accurate and this doesn't look good. So how do we fix that? Well, the first thing we're going to want to do is go into our animations folder and find iron sights. And specifically for rifle, because that's what we're doing. Okay, so we want the rifle iron sights. It's going to be this animation right here. And if we open that up, we can see what I've been referencing, that idle animation. He moves, he sways. It's cool, but it's not what we want. So the first thing we need to do is actually cut this animation down. We don't want to modify the original. I mean, you can if you want. That's completely fine. You can, of course, just re-import it. But I'm going to duplicate this so we can have the original idle animation, which we're still going to use in the future, not in this episode, but we're still going to use that. But we want to duplicate it here and make another one called static. And not called static, but idle rifle iron sights static. So just add underscore static to the end of it, and that will be a completely static animation. Sorry, it opened on my other monitor. Well, first we have to pause it and bring this timeline all the way back to the beginning. And we're going to want to right click either down in a blank area or up here at the timeline and remove frame 2 to 190 or whatever the duration here is. Basically, we just want the first frame. If you right click and you get this menu, you've probably right clicked in the notify lane and you'll just want to go above or below to a blank space. But what we'll do, like I said, is remove frames. Well, I clicked a little too far, so we'll do frame 1 to 190. And now, if we zoom in, we can see if we've got a completely still animation or if there's a little bit of jitter. So let's play, and we can see that it's completely still. There's no jitter, there's no movement. If you see the tiniest bit of jitter, what you can do is, once again, put the scrubber back to 0, right-click as far left as you can, and you might see remove frame 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 or something. You might see something here, but we don't want to insert a frame and there's nothing here to remove because we just have one frame. So this is a completely still animation, and now we need to put that in our animation blueprint. The way we can do that without backing out is actually just go up here into blueprint. And this is the iron sights graph that we have. This is our idle, but in case you're not exactly here already, you're probably looking at the anim graph or the event graph, right? So you can go over here into the animation graphs and double click that and open that. And from our tutorials in the past, we've got unequipped locomotion for just standing, and then we have the new state machine, which I need to rename to equipped, which we will here in a moment. But let's open that up and let's go to our idle animation. Now, of course, this is the one that has the idle and that has the sway that's giving us some problematic results. So let's replace that by doing idle rifle iron sights static. And I misnamed that, so I'll fix that here in a second because I did steak or whatever. Ooh, steak sounds good. Well, now we need to replace that with our result, and we can just delete this one. So now if we compile, check is equipped item to be true. It runs our idle animation, and now we have a completely still animation. And everything that we've done in the past still works. We can go pick up this weapon and look around with our completely still animation. But it looks a lot more lifeless, doesn't it? But hey, it's accurate. We can move around, we can walk around, and we still get a bit of that jitter, but it, and we're still going to get some jitter when we jump and whatnot, but that is way more accurate. So how do we remove the rest? Well, this is where it gets a lot more fun and a little bit more complicated. Let's go back to our blueprint here, or animation blueprint rather, and go back to our animation graph. So if you haven't followed this entire series, if you're a little lost, I've got a series link in the description for the playlist, but this is how we have the equipped weapon with aiming to be able to look up and down, and the unequipped animations for when we don't have anything in our hand and, well, we just want to be walking around, quote unquote, with no gun. But of course, there's this preview mesh here. Well, what we'll actually want to do is do another blend here. So let's drag this back. I'm going to actually name this to Gun Equipped Locomotion. And that just lets us know, it's just a good label, it just lets us know this is the locomotion, this is the state machine for when our weapon is equipped. And we actually want to duplicate our unequipped locomotion, so we can either select this and hit Control-W or Control-C and Control-V. And now it says unequipped locomotion _1 because we've got 2. And that's fine. You can just leave that there or better label that if you would like. But what we want is layered blend per bone. And this allows us to kind of separate the body. It's something that we'll also utilize in the future for other things, but it allows us to separate the body right down the spine or whatever bone that we place. So if we stay selected on this node, you'll see over here in this config area, now your layout may look a little bit different, but hopefully it's your details panels over here. You can see that there's a layer setup and then another drop down for 0, that's how many members are in this, and then the branch filters. There's absolutely nothing in this, but right now you can hit plus, and it adds another array to that. Well, this has 2 members, actually. This has bone name and blend depth. Blend depth, we can leave at 0. That's kind of, that's a more advanced feature that we're not going to, I say advanced feature. It's something that we don't really need to touch. It's animation blending, all that, it can get crazy. There's some amazing stuff that you can do with Unreal's feature set, but right now we just need to pick a spine. So of course I know which one that we want to pick. We want to pick spine _1, or O1 rather. But if you don't know what bone you want to pick, if you're not using this skeleton, just go over to your skeleton tab here. It'll open the new tab, and you can find your bones in the hierarchy and kind of click around and see where they are. And I highly suggest to play around with this because you may not like the way it looks when I do this. You may not like where it separates. So maybe you want it on bone 2, maybe you want it on bone 3. But nonetheless, it's kind of, this is going to represent the separation in animations. And what animations are we separating? Unequipped and equipped. So our bottom half is actually going to act like we don't have a gun. It's going to run all the animations and the running and the jumping and all that stuff. And our top half is going to act like we have a gun. So let's take a look at how that looks real quick, shall we? Let's just make sure we've got spine _1. And I can't spell because I don't have my glasses because they've been broke for a bit. And we want to make sure that mesh space rotation is checked to be true. Well, there's a few more things that we need to clean up and finish before everything looking smooth. But like I said, that just is allowing us to have more control over the animations, the split over the top and the bottom. That actually allows us to, it's going to allow us to implement crouch and a lot of other things while still aiming and gunplay and a lot of other things. But of course, it's not something we can fully demonstrate quite yet. So let's get into a few other things that we need to finish up. Let's hop into our gun locomotion, and we're going to do something a little scary and completely delete walking because we don't need this anymore because our walking's handled by our bottom half, and that just makes everything so much easier. Before we do that, let's just copy it real quick. We select it all, Control-C, and then we can back out and then delete these. And then let's go back into our animation graph and go into our unequipped locomotion and then our idle run. Now, our third-person idle animation is great for what it does. You know, when we're in third person, we can walk around and run in one direction. But that's it. It's one direction. It doesn't allow us to have strafing or that backwards movement or anything that we do get from this blend space, the one that we just copied, the rifle movement. So how do we swap between these two? Well, first thing, we need to do a blend by bool again. And the first one is going to be true, or pardon me, the rifle movement is going to be on true, and false will be our 2D. And you might have already guessed it, our bool that is going to determine is item equipped. We can just connect that to the result here. And then, of course, everything else here is fine. These defaults are good. We can just Control-Shift-S to save that. And now let's take a look at how that looks. So let's go over and pick something up here. And as we run around, you might notice there's a lot less movement. And if we aim down sights, it is dead on. We've got movement, we've got strafing, left, right, forward, backwards, jumping even. Of course, that looks a little weird, but don't worry, those animations are gonna be fixed. I'll cover all of that. But I mean, this is what we want. We jump, we move around, and then we back out, and there's no snap. We move around, we back out, there's no snap. It just works. It's beautiful. We're phasing into the wall, but that's because we're a full-size character with the collisions that don't determine not to phase into the wall. That's a different story, though. So that's the ADS that we're looking for. So there's one very last thing that we need to do, and that's to fix this little bug, right? It's the equip bug where we can aim basically the second we pick up the gun. Because if we do that and we happen to just aim the second we pick up the gun and then we release, you can see it does that little tilt and then snaps back. But if you pick it up, wait for it to be good, and then aim and use it, the way it snaps back, or the way it goes back to, is the way it should be. It's basically because we're allowing our player to aim before we're in position. And I understand that there's some other bugs that are displayed here with the movement and whatnot. Once again, those will be addressed in a future episode. But as for the aiming too early, we can address that by going into our player character, and we actually need to be able to control whether or not we can aim, right? So we have something called is aiming, but that kind of tells us just if we're aiming, not if we can. So what we want is to make another bool called can aim. And what we'll do is on our weapon secondary, we'll move these out of the way here just a bit and branch this on both of them, actually, because even if we release, we don't want the function of release to also run. So can aim, let's branch here, and we'll just connect it to these two. So if it's true, if we can indeed aim, honestly this is duplicating, we don't need two of these. If this is true, then we are just going to set the variable like normal, but if we can't aim and that variable set false, we're just not going to do anything. So now what we need to do is go into our equip item, and at the very end of the line on valid and not valid, we need to add a delay. And actually, this is one downside to functions that I completely forgot. Well, I didn't forget this, but I forgot that I put this in a function, rather. You can't put time dilation things. You can't put time-based things in functions, like delays, timelines, stuff like that, right? So we do need to actually just add the delay after the equipped item. So delay, and our delay, and we're going to need to do it after both of these. The delay is going to be the length of the equip animation. So equip rifle standing is approximately 1.73 repeating seconds long. So what we can do is go back into our player character, say 1.73 as the delay, and alt drag can aim to be true. Okay? And then we can just do the same thing there. Now we need to just set can aim to be false. Let's compile here real quick, make sure it's false. And then if we go and pick it up, and I immediately hit right click, I can't aim. And then if I let go and then I aim and we move around, it doesn't do the snapback glitch. And that's basically because it's not allowing us to aim until the animation is finished. So I'm going to start the animation and now it hit aim, and yeah, it still doesn't allow us to aim, and then we right click and do all that, and there's no snapback glitch because it's not aiming ahead of time, right? So you might be saying to yourself, okay, well, what if we're spawning with a gun and the can aim is set to false? Well, first of all, our logic should avoid that, because even in the future when we swap weapons or spawn with weapons and stuff like that, we'll be able to tell the character, our logic will know that it's can aim. It's not completely set like that right now, but it will be in the future. But if you just want every character to always have a gun and spawn in with that, then you know that they're equipped and you know that they're holding it, and can aim should be true. Other than that, there's many other features and bugs and whatnot that I'm going to be addressing in future tutorials. So please stick around, and I hope this helped out, and I am sorry for, not the best explanations and stuff recently, but I'm really just trying to get these features out to you guys so that way you can play around with them and kind of get a feel for things, because game development, it's not an exact science, and I feel like that's ever more apparent in recent decades, where we're pushing out games a little too early with bugs and all that stuff, compared to decades earlier where games were heavily bug tested and really had such a limited range compared to now for bugs and whatnot. So it's not an exact science. It's a toy. It's all variables. It's all ideas and concepts that we're just pretending to be health and guns and bullets and all these different things. So if you're a really good creator and imaginer, then you're going to make a really good game and make these concepts the best illusions that you can. So I really hope that this has taught you something. I hope that you guys can make the games that you want to make, and please leave any suggestions in the comments or even the Discord server that I have to help you guys out. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.